One early morning in the Adirondack forest, I, Aidan Brody, a writer, once a journalist, stepped outside my secluded house and took a deep breath of fresh air. The rain from the previous night left a thin mist on the tree branches, and the fresh scent of pine filled the air. I wore my old flannel shirt, stretched and yawned, wondering if a cup of coffee was what I needed to wake up. Life here was so quiet, a peace I had long searched for after deciding to leave behind the hustle and bustle of city life. I had once been a journalist, racing against the clock for stories, but now I was just a man who found peace in every word and the stillness of nature. As I stepped outside, I heard birds singing from afar, but everything else remained silent, save for the sound of my footsteps crunching on the dry leaves. I took a long breath, feeling the cool, crisp air fill my lungs. This feeling was excellent, a breeze carrying the scent of earth and trees, like a wonderful gift from nature to those who knew how to enjoy it. But at that moment, I stopped, suddenly sensing something unusual in the air. A cold feeling filled the space around me, and I sensed the presence of a large creature, sending a shiver down my spine. I turned and saw a massive black bear standing just a few steps away. It didn't move or growl, just stood there, silent, like a still silhouette in the quiet early morning. The soft light of dawn illuminated the bear's body, highlighting its thick, dark fur. Its eyes, black and bright, were wet, as if it had just gone through something painful, and I had to stop as if drawn into its gaze. At that moment, I felt a sense of despair, of fragility in the bear's eyes, as if it was carrying a deep sorrow that could not be expressed in words. What I immediately realized was the abnormality in the bear's behavior. It didn't seem aggressive or ready to attack me, as I had imagined. It stood completely silent, with only its heavy breathing filling the air. My initial fear gradually turned into sympathy, an almost strange feeling as I realized that the bear wasn't looking for food, but perhaps it was suffering a pain I could not understand. As I stepped closer, I noticed the bear was carrying something in its mouth. It was a lifeless baby, no longer breathing. A chill ran through me when I realized that this mother bear, instead of attacking as I feared, was carrying its deceased child as though it was facing an unimaginable loss. Its eyes still did not leave mine, as if waiting for something. I immediately understood that this was not just any bear. It was a mother carrying the despair and grief of losing her child. My first instinct was to close the door and run inside to grab the rifle, which I always kept hanging on the kitchen wall. But as soon as I saw the bear's eyes, I felt a shift in my mind. The helplessness, the exhaustion I saw in its gaze made me reconsider. This was not a bear that wanted to attack me. This was a wild creature suffering pain, entirely different from what I had imagined. I stared into the bear's eyes and couldn't help but feel a strange connection. At that moment, I realized there was nothing I could do to change the situation. I couldn't help the bear by bringing the baby back to life. But something in the bear's actions made me unable to walk away. It didn't attack me, didn't do anything to threaten my safety. Instead, it just stood there, its bright eyes full of emotion, as if sending a silent message. I didn't know what to do in this situation. I felt confused and couldn't decide immediately. But the bear's gaze, the patience, and the sadness in its eyes made me unable to ignore it. I stood there, unsure what to do next. But I felt something obvious. Life and death, suffering and hope, all resided in this moment. I couldn't turn my back, close the door, and walk away. Something within me forced me to stay and face the bear, to face its pain. At that moment, I wasn't just a writer or a man living alone in the forest. I became a part of nature, a witness to a story that only nature could tell. Although I couldn't change the fate of the mother bear or her lost child, I knew that I would never forget this moment. The moment where life and death intersected in the eyes of a wild creature. Standing facing the bear, I couldn't help but feel that life doesn't always unfold how we want. Sometimes, we have to accept loss and helplessness, and we can only stand still, observe, and feel instead of trying to change everything. And in that moment, I understood that the bear's pain couldn't be fixed in an instant. But it taught me a big lesson. Sometimes, empathy and presence are all we can offer each other in life's most difficult moments. After standing still, facing the bear's gaze, I began to feel the tension in my body. Though I no longer felt the fear I had at first, my mind kept spinning with questions about this strange situation. I couldn't understand why the bear had come to my doorstep, but I felt there was something I couldn't ignore. The bear still didn't move, and I noticed it was starting to breathe more steadily. Its eyes never left mine, still glowing with an unspoken patience. It felt like it was waiting for something, a decision from me. I took a deep breath and reminded myself that I could do nothing more than face this situation calmly and rationally. I slowly moved toward the door but didn't close it. Instead, I stood silently for a long while, watching the mother bear. My heart was pounding, but I couldn't turn away. There was something in its actions that prevented me from doing so. I realized that the mother bear was not a threat at that moment. It didn't want to attack me. It only wanted one thing, my presence in these moments, as it faced a pain it couldn't share with anyone else. I sat down on the doorstep, trying to remain calm. It was a still moment where I could hear the wind rustling through the trees and the distant songs of birds. Everything seemed to stop. The world around me suddenly became very peaceful. At that moment, I realized I had found something bigger than my work, the stories I had written, and human relationships. The mother bear still sat there, its gaze fixed on me. I noticed the exhaustion, the depletion in how it breathed, and an odd resilience, a bizarre determination. Suddenly, a thought struck me. Could it be that the mother bear had been watching me before coming here? Could it be that it chose me for some reason I didn't yet understand? This question made me suddenly feel a strange sensation, a connection between humans and wild animals, something I had never experienced as a journalist and writer. A moment later, I decided to go inside. The feeling I had at that moment was strange, as if something within me had changed. I went to the kitchen and grabbed some honey, following the instructions I had read in articles about caring for injured wildlife. Then, I returned to the porch, carefully holding the syringe, dropping a few drops of honey on my hand, and gently offering it to the mother bear. The bear did not react immediately, but I could feel its silence as if it were waiting for me. I repeated this action several times until I saw the mother bear begin to taste each drop of honey. That relieved me, although I wasn't sure if it would help. But at least I knew that the bear had accepted my help. By the end of the morning, the mother bear stood up and began to move slowly and without haste. Its eyes still did not leave me, but I noticed a sense of appreciation in them this time. The feeling inside me was indescribable. I realized that I hadn't done anything grand, but I had done something that not everyone could do. I had been there for the mother bear when it needed a presence, a sense of understanding. The mother bear turned away, and I watched its silhouette fade behind the trees. Everything returned to its usual silence, but I no longer felt alone. A part of me had changed forever. Standing in the vast forest, I realized that life can bring unexpected things, moments that make us stop and reflect on the true nature of the relationship between humans and nature. I returned to my house and closed the door, but the image of the mother bear and its gaze lingered in my mind. I had not only helped a wild creature but also found something greater within myself: compassion, patience, and belief in the connection between all living creatures on this earth. And I knew that no matter what life brought, I would never forget that strange moment when a mother bear and I shared a part of our life story. After the mother bear quietly left, I stood there for a long while, watching its shadow fade into the forest. The familiar sounds of the forest came back, but now I felt something different. A strange sense of relief spread through me, as if I had done something right, though it was just a small action compared to the vastness of nature. Entering the house, I felt the air in the spacious room grow quieter than ever. The towels and old blankets were still scattered on the floor, remnants of a long day spent caring for the cub, which had not yet fully recovered. I sat in the armchair, looking out the window, where the light of the morning was gradually fading, giving way to noon. My mind was still spinning with thoughts about what had happened. I wondered if the mother bear would stay in the area and if I would face it again. But one thing was clear. If they returned, I could do nothing more than give them the space to live, to continue their journey in the wild world of which I was just a tiny part. The days that followed passed slowly. The mother bear did not return, but I still couldn't forget its gaze, a gaze that was both strong and painful. It hadn't forgotten me. I could feel that with each morning when I stepped outside. Every time I went to the porch, I felt something in the air, a presence that words couldn't describe. Perhaps the mother bear was still watching from afar, as if knowing I had done everything possible to help its cub. A week passed, and on a chilly morning, I noticed something strange as I stepped outside as usual. A small pile of berries was carefully placed on the porch under the pine tree. Bright red, ripe blueberries sparkled in the morning light. There was no one around, but I knew who had done it. I smiled gently, my heart warming. This was the first gift the mother bear had left for me, a way of saying thank you, a gesture of gratitude from nature. I didn't say anything. I just stood there, feeling the connection between me and the wild creatures around me. These gifts became a sign of existence, an acknowledgement that I had become part of a larger chain, part of a journey I had never imagined. Day by day, these gifts continued to appear. A few pine cones, a smooth stone, and yellow leaves are arranged in small circles on the porch. Every time I saw them, I felt as though a part of nature was sending its presence to me. And I knew that the mother bear was still nearby, still observing from afar, still protecting her cub in the wild world it belonged to. A month passed, and I felt a noticeable change in myself. I no longer felt lonely. Every time I stepped outside, I felt like I wasn't just living alone in this house, but sharing this space with a part of the wild nature. I felt the presence of the mother bear, and perhaps even of other bears, always watching me from afar but still present, a part of this story. Whenever I walked through the forest, I felt the life around me. The wind rustled through the branches, the birds chirping high in the trees, and my footsteps on the dry leaves. Every trace, every sound, every breath of nature now held deep meaning for me. I understood that nature was not just where I lived, but an inseparable part of my life. One morning, as I sat by the window looking out at the forest, I saw a figure pass by. Not the mother bear, but I recognized it as a grown-up cub, bigger, stronger, and more confident. The cub, now grown, passed through the area around my house naturally as if it knew this was its home, where it had once been saved. A strange feeling swelled in me, a mix of joy and worry. I didn't know what to do. I couldn't keep it here forever. Nature had its plan, and now the cub had grown enough to return to the wildlife where it belonged. But I also knew that, even if it left, it would never forget me, just as I would always remember it. The bond between us wasn't ownership, but respect and compassion. I smiled, stood up, and stepped outside, watching the cub leave. I didn't feel sad. Instead, I felt proud. I had done the right thing, helped it survive, and now it had returned to the wild, where all wild animals belong. I went back into the house, feeling a sense of peace within. Things don't always happen how we want, but knowing that we've done the right thing is sometimes enough. As I continue my life, I know that nature will always be present somewhere in my mind, always watching and sometimes leaving me small gifts as a reminder of the deep connection between humans and the wild world. One morning, after a light rain, I woke up and felt the familiar stillness of the forest around me. Everything was the same, but something in the air made me feel different. I stepped outside and breathed in the cool air, but my heart swelled strangely. Indeed, the months spent living in this forest had changed me in ways I never could have imagined. The story of the mother bear and her cub was not just a brief encounter, but had become an inseparable part of my life. It reminded me of the connection between humans and nature, of how every creature has a vital role in the functioning of this world. Every time I step outside, I feel like I'm a part of a larger ecosystem where everything has a purpose and life always grows in its way. I had gradually accepted this change, but still couldn't shake the feeling that something was missing. Even though the gifts the mother bear left on the porch continued to appear every fall, I felt that the space around me seemed to lack something, like a hollow in my heart. A week later, in the early morning, I decided to walk through the forest as usual. The autumn chill began to creep into every branch of the trees, but I didn't feel cold. Instead, I felt a strange warmth in my heart. I walked gently, hearing the leaves rustling under my feet, and occasionally the distant songs of birds echoed. Each step I took felt like a part of this forest, a harmony between man and nature. As I ventured deeper into the woods, something caught my attention. A prominent figure, the shape of a bear, appeared in the distance. This time, it wasn't a grown cub or the mother bear, but a male bear. It stood not far from me, but just stared at me without moving. I stopped, sensing its presence. Unlike the mother bear, the male bear didn't have a patient or sorrowful gaze. Instead, it looked at me with precise vigilance, assessing me and measuring my threat. A sense of uncertainty arose within me. This male bear was not like the bears I had encountered before. It didn't have the gentleness or trust of the mother bear. I didn't move, just stood there looking at the bear with respect. Although there was some fear, I knew my actions would decide the outcome of this encounter. I didn't want to do anything that might provoke or threaten it. A long moment passed in silence, only the wind rustling through the branches and the steady breathing of the bear. Finally, after a few minutes, the male bear slowly turned its head and walked deeper into the forest. I sighed in relief, feeling a sense of understanding within me. This may be a part of the natural cycle. I knew that I couldn't control or change the behavior of these wild creatures, but I understood that every encounter like this carried a message. They were free creatures, and I had to respect that freedom. Returning home, I again felt the familiar, quiet atmosphere. But this time, there was a more profound feeling within me. Life in this forest was not just my presence, it was a part of me, and I was a part of it. My encounters with nature, with wild animals, had taught me many lessons about respect, courage, and acceptance. Every fall, the gifts from the mother bear reappeared on the porch, a reminder of the invisible connection between us. And I, as a witness to the wonders of nature, had become a part of this story, not as an observer, but as a protector, a sharer of life in the forest. My life continued daily, but I no longer felt alone. I understood that every creature, big or small, had a role to play in the functioning of this world. And I, though just a tiny part of this nature, could do something meaningful, whether through small actions, small gifts, or simply being present in this vast world. Time continued to pass, and the autumn came again, bringing gifts from nature, berries, pine cones, and yellow leaves neatly arranged on the porch. I was no longer surprised, but the gratitude in my heart was always complete. These gifts were reminders, confirmations that I had a part in a vast ecosystem where every creature played an important role. Just like the previous encounters, though brief and wordless, I felt that each of those moments was precious. One morning, I noticed something strange when I woke up and looked out the window. On the porch, not just a pile of berries as usual, but something different. A bear's fur. A long, dark black hair extending from the crack in the window. At first, I didn't understand what it meant, but when I looked closer, I realized this was no longer the usual gift from the mother bear. It was a sign of something changing. Perhaps the mother bear had left, but maybe it was still nearby, still wanting to leave a mark, a part of itself. I carefully took the bear's fur and placed it on the table, looking at it as if looking into a part of the story I hadn't fully understood. That day, I decided to go outside and walk through the forest to continue my journey, not just enjoy the scenery. I needed to learn more about what was happening. Even though I knew the mother bear might have left, a part of me still wanted to understand the change I was witnessing. I tried to understand the deep connection between myself and nature and explore if something was waiting for me ahead. The cool autumn air filled the space around me as I stepped into the forest. Each step I took felt like part of the silence of nature, and I thought that this space was not just where I lived, but also where I found myself. The sounds around me, the wind, the rustling of leaves, created a quiet melody, a wonderful harmony between man and nature. Deep into the forest, I began to sense something strange, a change in the air. It wasn't fear or tension, but a feeling like someone was watching me. I stopped, looked around, and felt the presence of some creature nearby. And then, from the front, I saw a prominent figure moving. Much larger than when I first met her, the mother bear walked toward me. This time, there was no panic or fear. I wasn't scared seeing her, even though her massive and majestic figure was before me. Instead, I felt a deep respect. The mother bear stopped at a safe distance, its eyes shining with patience and understanding. I realized she watched me as if she wanted me to notice something. I didn't say anything. I just stood there, feeling the silence between us. A moment later, the mother bear lowered her head, and I saw her pick up a branch from the ground, lift it, and place it back on the ground as if showing me something. I didn't understand immediately, but that action made me realize that this was not a random act. There was something profound in it. Perhaps the mother bear was teaching me a lesson about patience, about looking at everything closely before making a judgment. I slowly walked closer, but still kept my respectful distance. Standing beside the mother bear, I felt her strength and calmness. In that moment, I realized something. Nature always teaches us lessons about patience and respect. The small things we don't notice, like a fallen branch, may hold a great message. When I returned home, my heart was filled with gratitude and understanding. I no longer felt anxious about what would come. Instead, I realized that every moment in this life has value. My encounters with nature and the gifts from wildlife were priceless lessons. And I knew that, no matter how life changed, I would always be part of this story, part of nature, always connected with the creatures that had taught me patience, compassion, and acceptance. In the end, I stood in the middle of the forest where I had found myself and realized that life isn't always about the choices we want, but sometimes about the surprises, the moments we can't control. The encounters with nature and the wild creatures I had encountered taught me that life is a continuous chain of connections, where everything has its reason. Death and life, letting go and acceptance, all are part of this life. The lesson I learned from the mother bear and the gifts nature had given me wasn't something complicated. It was patience, respect, and compassion for all the creatures around us. It was realizing that we are not the center of this universe, but just a part of a bigger picture, where every creature has its role, each contributing to the balance of nature. Each gift from the mother bear, each trace of life and death I witnessed, was an essential reminder of the deep connection between humans and nature. Perhaps the most important thing I learned is that, no matter what we may do, the core thing is presence. The willingness to understand and share those moments with the world around us. I thank you to those who have followed my story. Thank you for taking the time to listen and walk through these special moments with me. If you found this story inspiring, don't forget to click subscribe to not miss out on the upcoming stories, sharing about life, nature, and all the wonders this world offers. Remember, every step in life and moment we stop to look around the world can be a lesson. We need to be patient and respectful, and always have compassion. And as the mother bear taught me in those moments, sometimes silence and presence can bring immense strength and transformation. Thank you, and I look forward to seeing you in the following stories.